It's time.
It's time.
And now, it's time for Herman and Sharon.
I love you. Thank you for joining us. We are so happy
We are?
that you joined us.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you say we are?
Well, I didn't know we were, but we are. You didn't finish your sentence, you know. Now you finish your sentence. Absolutely. We are both happy.
53 years with me and she still hasn't figured me out.
No, and I'm not going to say anything about that because we're going to talk to a very excited lady today.
This lady, she has parts of people all over the United States. And we'll explain what that means.
Yes.
Share her testimony.
She's
right
written
there.
a book, A Heart Like Yours. We have Cindy Valenti Cinto with us.
Ooh.
I think I did it right.
She's shaking her head. I think you're part right.
She lives with multiple life-threatening health issues. After her heart transplant in 2005, she was given approximately 5 years to live, but she triumphantly
You know why she was given only 5 years?
No, are we?
She has diabetes.
Passed that mark in July of 2010. Any other news?
No,
for me?
okay, as you're reading.
She also had a successful pancreas transplant, and after her heart transplant.
Yeah.
And you got to hear this woman's story. She's amazing.
And she says her husband John is bald.
Whatever
So I
that's got
told
to
her
do with
John can
anything.
get a hair transplant.
All right.
So we'll just keep going with transplants. Okay.
I don't know where
You
this is
can't have
going
any
today.
of mine.
Okay.
I'm not giving any away. Great to see you here.
I understand that's the part of your body that you can't take hair follicles from somebody else and put them in another guy's head.
No, I didn't know
It's got to be your own
that.
follicle.
There's so many things you can donate.
I know it.
Yeah. I mean, they can actually donate a little tissue behind your eye and implant it in someone's ears who's deaf and give them their hearing
I don't know
back.
why I'm standing. I have a chair.
Well, but
Yeah,
because
come on back
because
over
we're
with me.
ready to spar here. It's to humor.
It's good to have you. It really is. In fact, her book comes in CDs.
First one.
Yeah, and I was listening to it. That's your card falling out of there. I was listening to her, but you're not reading it.
I did.
Did you
That
really?
was difficult.
This is your voice?
Take
bet.
5, take 7,
This
take
is your
12.
voice on here?
Yes, that's
Okay.
me.
Well, I didn't recognize
In
that.
a little tiny booth, reading your book is just as hard as writing it.
Oh, I would imagine.
You didn't have to come up with the idea, but I have a bit of a New York accent still, and I live in Washington, so I had a hard time with some of those words.
Let's go to urgent care.
Oh no, let's not. If I walk in, they're all going to run. Are you kidding?
Okay, let's take a trip to urgent care right now. I collapsed against the counter. I think I'm having a heart attack. Does those words sound familiar?
Yeah.
How did that feel? How did you know?
Oh, you know, it's a heart attack is actually so different for many people. For me, it would be the elephant on the chest.
Okay.
But then it was like someone had reached up and was choking me. It didn't usually go down my arms. It was
Could you
just
breathe?
No, it was so hard to breathe. I really felt like I was being strangled. And that's how, I mean, I had about 25 the first 3 or 4 years.
Okay, take us. By the way, I love those colors.
Thank you. I
Did
wanted
you
to
know
be
your
very
fingernails are actually the same color as your outfit? Did you know that?
tropical. I tried to do that.
Okay, wow. You
Wasn't
pulled
that
it
lovely?
Off. You pulled it off.
My 22-year-old just shook his head. He doesn't get it.
Okay, take us to your transplant.
The very day, well, the transplant.
Maybe a little leading up
yeah.
to it because it's like
Excuse me.
Yes, honey.
I want to go back even further because she said you had 25 heart attacks
About that in 3 years.
in 3 years.
It started a week after the attack on 9/11. Now I'm from New York, and I was getting ready to bring my son, he was 12 at the time, to the fair out in Spokane, Washington. I live out in the Green Acres is the name of my
Yeah,
town.
sure.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah.
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane, Washington.
I love Leavenworth, Washington.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, in
But
the
that's
winter, in the
that-
summer, every
Okay, guys.
That's another
so
interview.
Back to the
Okay.
story.
So I was getting ready and I saw that whole thing on TV and I just stopped and cried hysterical. I'd been in those towers, so I knew how many people were probably in there at 9 o'clock in the morning. And a week later, I had my own attack, a heart attack, But it took 3 days for them to realize I was thinner than now, healthy, athletic, vegetarian, organic. We had gone on a wilderness canoe trip with 20 people, and I was eating papaya slices and cheese, and they were eating hoagies and chips. And low cholesterol,
Honey,
no
I gotta
family
stop being
history.
a vegetarian, right?
No cholesterol.
Well, everybody says I should have eaten preservatives all my life. I would have been better
You should have been
off.
eating at McDonald's.
Yeah, Burger King,
Yeah,
you
right.
know. And I had not one reason to have any heart disease. Now, I had been a diabetic since 10. But when I went and got life insurance, they said, you're healthier than people without diabetes. There was nothing. I was like pillar of health. And so about a week after the attack on 9/11, I started getting that tightness, and like someone was choking me, and I was doing a power walk by the stream one day and collapsed, made it home. And eventually I went to the doctor, but it took them 3 days to believe me. All the tests were normal, the EKG, the nuclear.
No blockage?
Well, they couldn't find any blockage
Goodness.
until I ended up in the ER. I couldn't breathe anymore. And they finally did a heart catheterization, and I had the widowmaker.
Wow.
Both the main artery and the side artery were 98% blocked.
That's what that term means, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Widowmaker, it kills men,
Yeah.
not women. Women don't usually get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet here I was, no prior symptoms at all.
Goodness.
You just don't know. And I was 40 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And there's a debate around the country. I've been to Seattle, San Diego, New York, Phoenix, hospitals everywhere. I even got an opinion from President Bush's private physician, Dr. Zachariah. And he said, at the point I was, he said, there's nothing anybody can do anymore. That was after 3 years of 25
So the heart was
attacks.
pretty well destroyed.
It was over 3 years. I had 36 angioplasties in 3 years.
Oh my
36.
36. I just had number 38 2 weeks ago.
Cindy.
So you're still having them even with your new
Every
heart?
year because they're so. I shouldn't even be alive with this heart. I got this heart, but it was damaged, ripped, torn, had holes in it, and came with a cancerous virus. Gee,
I mean, I want to be
That's why
laughing.
you shouldn't sit
but
too close
she-
to me.
she should have her own comedy show.
Oh, I would love it. You know what I keep telling people? The reason I've died a few times too, and my doctor came in one day and he goes, "You're not dead yet."
Now
And
that's
I
a
said-
good open.
I said, "Well, I've been trying to get to heaven, but I keep missing."
Goodness gracious. You're going to wait around for the rapture.
Oh well, I don't know. I might be just kind of directing people for that.
You said my husband's gracious disposition went unaffected by my bad attitude. So you really had a bad attitude with doctors and with.
It was difficult. It was the toss-up between being that nice, loving, God just loves you Christian, but then also having to fight because sometimes doctors have to have a 9-to-5 mentality.
Well, you had an ER guy that was really rude to you.
I don't know what happened. I should have died that day. I really should have died.
Tell some of the things he did. It's in the book. But
Well, yeah, I arrived in an ambulance.
he said, "You better tell me, or I'm not going to give you any care."
The ER wasn't busy. I arrived in an ambulance completely paralyzed, laying like this. They plot me on a table, closed the triage door, and I'm laying there thinking, okay, I know I'm having a heart attack. I'm going to die, and I have no way to get help. And he came in and out 3 times. He was in a bad mood. And he said, tell me what makes your chest pain worse. I said, I don't know. I could barely talk. Oh, I'm not going to treat someone like you.
He said, "If you're going to give me an answer like that, I'm out of here." And he
Yeah.
leaves.
It was 43 minutes per my records before he even put a heart monitor on me or oxygen.
Can you believe that?
And at the end of that whole ordeal, the heart transplant doctor came in because they didn't know what was happening. And my husband was being told they were just working on me.
Yeah.
And he said,
You tried to
out
get him
here."
in there, didn't you?
I did. And the guy said, I'll get him when I feel like it. And I was like dying. And it ended up that my potassium was 8.5. So high that it had shut all the muscles down in my body. My kidneys were in kidney failure. And the next thing to go is your heart. And when your heart stops from potassium, you're gone. No reviving you. It was by the grace of God, again, that I wasn't dead. He just kept going in and out and I'm laying there paralyzed.
My goodness.
Where does that come from?
When did you get online or at least one of the ones that are wait for a heart. When did that happen?
I was listed in, let me see, April's when I died a few times. And then in May of 2005, I got listed.
When you died, did you see a light?
The second time I met the Lord.
Well, that's another book.
That's in book 1. So you can't keep up. I'm working on book 3. I just need some time to write it.
Okay.
I need an island.
Okay. Now, how did they find a heart for you?
The morning of July, 13th, or the afternoon, I had been in the hospital. I had died 3 times officially, coded, and my surgeon, we have the highest success rate in the country for surviving a heart transplant in Little Spokane, Washington, because of one man, Timothy Eisenogle, the Iceman, we like to call him.
My goodness, yes.
He is icy.
Yes.
Strong Christian, but he came in and he's blunt. I like that. I'm from New York.
Yeah.
And he said, you need a heart today, or you're not going to make it maybe even a few days or a week. But there's 70 people on the list ahead of you. You're not getting one for 9 months to a year. Get your affairs in order and say goodbye to your family.
Is that what they tell you? Is
It's-
that what they tell you?
I've heard it 3 times. And yeah, when
Okay.
it's that imminent, they have to.
All right. Take us from there now. How did you get the heart?
The next morning, it was 6:30. Nurses are coming in. I was a wall unit in that hospital. I had been in every room multiple times, and I've gone AWOL several times. I've escaped from the hospital. Those are really funny stories.
Well, I can see you escaping.
Oh, it was so much fun. Always have to do it during shift change.
Yeah.
They don't notice.
Yeah.
So they had me right by the nurse's station
Okay.
because they couldn't trust me. And he came in, and he said, puts a sheet of paper on the desk and says, sign on the dotted line. And I looked at him, and it said heart transplant, but I had to ask him. I said, how did you get a heart? And he told me about my donor. She was 28. She died tragically outside of Seattle. The heart was ripped, torn, damaged. She had a cancerous virus that was going to manifest in me. And he said, nobody wanted it. They took it off the list. They said, it won't keep anyone alive. And I looked at him and I said, why do you think that's going to work for me? And he said, this is the one the Lord has for you.
Man, oh man.
But I would only live a few years. And he said, the last 6 months will be a slow
Now,
death.
why were you designated 5 years would be maximum?
Well, between being a diabetic, as healthy as I was not healthy anymore, and the heart being so damaged, and he had to get a Learjet. He had to borrow a Learjet. He had 3 hours to go from Spokane to Seattle, operate on Danielle, and sew this heart up, put aneuplasty rings in it, sew holes up, and bring it back and put it in me. And they said, there's this much of a chance it'll even start beating. But you know, they
How long
got
was
it.
the operation?
Almost 4 hours. Almost 4 hours. When they put her heart in me, now they're going to have to shock it and massage it. It's been hardened and stunned with potassium. As soon as my blood started flowing, he said the entire operating room went quiet because it started beating, ba-bum, 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 all by itself. All by itself. He still talks about it.
That's a God thing.
Oh, nobody can believe it. And
So that's your heart today? You still have
that's
that?
it. And it
Wow.
was 7 years, July 14th.
And what is amazing, since we're on the heart, that you met the parent.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
2 years after I had written, because about 3 months later, it is, a privacy law. You cannot contact each other
Right.
unless both people sign papers.
Right.
And I had signed him and written a letter. It was Danielle's mom that was the designated family contact. And it was 3 days after New Year's. I was working for a ministry out in Idaho, and I was driving home and just feeling kind of, melancholy. And I looked, and there was a message on my phone when I got home, and it was Danielle's mom. And she called me and said, I made a New Year's resolution that I would call you. But for 2 years, this was her princess, Danielle and Charlotte. And she said, even though I know the Lord, because they're Christians, Danielle's in heaven waiting for me. She said, I went into a depression. I just wanted to die. I lost my princess. And we talked and cried for hours and hours. And Easter weekend, she flew to Spokane, and we met
In the airport.
in the airport. And I got her a heart-shaped, a stethoscope with a heart-shaped red mic.
Oh.
And she got to put it on my chest
She heard that heart.
and listen to her daughter's heart beating in me, Danielle.
How special is
And
that?
this is Danielle here. Yeah, this is her. This is her heart. It's in me. And then I talk about in
Yeah.
book 2 how I went to see the rest of the family, and they put on a neighborhood barbecue honoring me.
Wow.
Me? I mean, they lost Danielle. Why
And
would
you-
they honor me?
And this girl has such problems in airports.
not not anymore this month now because of my pancreas donor. But I had so much equipment on me.
I mean,
Oh.
and these guys would. She says, I can't go through. I have a pacemaker. I can't go through there. That's going to mess it up. And the guy says, yes, you can. Go. No, I can't. So she has to opt out. And then this one guy was not going to let you out.
No, see, I had the pacemaker, I had an insulin pump, I had an alarm system hooked up to me with an IV because I had gone into shock and almost died.
And they thought the thing you were carrying was a bomb.
No, I know it was I know, and they would want to force me.
Yeah.
They're much better today because now it was a big news thing. But that one guy in Denver, it's
Yeah.
3:30 in the morning. I had been stuck overnight. I went home with a stranger
Yes.
who ended up being a Christian, thank God. and he's screaming at me. And I said, "Who made you a doctor?" I was.
Yeah.
So when he got called off, I snuck past him.
And they searched you.
Well, yeah, then some lady patted me down and I just cried hysterical, walked away and thought, how cruel.
Yeah.
How cruel. And I had medical documentation, but they would never want to look at it.
She goes to doctors and she would have, apparently this was a day, as many as 5 to 10 appointments.
Oh, a week.
A
Yeah.
week.
In fact, when I leave Florida next week, I'm going down and staying a week and working on a fiction book I've started. I have 5 doctor's
This is no
appointments.
fiction we're talking about right
No,
here.
no, no. Well, I've got to finish my 3rd nonfiction, but now I want to do some fiction. I think I should be fiction.
You have such a great attitude.
It's the Lord. And
I thought it was John.
No, that poor man, he's probably hiding somewhere.
How many years you been married?
30 years this past May 23rd. 30 years.
And he's got a good sense of humor, doesn't he?
Well, he tries, but they say about how many words a woman has to talk and man has to talk. I read your little devotional for today, and your little, it was interesting, your little devotional and your daily thing.
Yeah.
And I remember a teaching on marriage, and the pastor said, my wife, she speaks 150 words a minute with Gus up to 180. So that poor man doesn't get a word in edgewise. I'm an F5.
Now, this is another strange thing. She gets on the airplane, and the pilot calls her up to the cockpit and the flight attendant doesn't like you at all.
No, she didn't like the fact that I was not going to let go of my bag. I have a tag on it, not anymore now since my pancreas
okay.
transplant. I feel like
But
a
you had a
butterfly.
tag on it.
Yeah.
And it said, "Do not separate from this passenger." It was all my medical equipment.
Yeah.
My luggage goes.
Yeah.
I don't have my equipment. I could die in a few
Yeah.
days.
If you separate this, it will detonate.
It will detonate. Well, they just always make such a big deal out of it, and they didn't believe me.
Sure.
So then she comes up to me. The captain would like to speak with you.
She has to go up to the cockpit.
But of course, I'm making
and now,
jokes.
Now all of the passengers,
Oh, they're getting nervous.
they're getting, and she's
because of
she's-
the black box.
and she's making comments to them. You're making.
Oh, I had to make a joke out of it.
She's
I mean,
making
you
jokes
know.
as she's passing them, going up to the cockpit.
Don't worry, people. It's fine. I'll take care of it.
So up to the cockpit, what does he do to you?
He says, you cannot have that equipment on this plane. I said, yes, I can. He said, no, you can't. I said, look at the tag. And he goes, well, I'll have to call this in. I said, be my guest, but you're going to delay this flight, and it's not my fault. So I go back to my seat, escorted by that stewardess,
Yeah.
who was not happy.
She's ticked.
And I looked at everybody, and I said, don't worry, people, I took care of it. Now 5
Can't
minutes.
you just see her doing that?
Yeah.
5 minutes goes by. Now we're late for takeoff.
Sure.
Now they're not laughing.
yeah.
They're pretty stoic looking. And she comes back. The captain would like to speak to you again.
Here she goes again.
Here I go again. Now they're really getting nervous. They're not just unhappy we're late. They're thinking, who are you? I mean, it doesn't matter what I look like.
So now the captain
Apologize.
apologizes, and he says,
First class for you.
Well, those poor
And
other
that
passengers.
stewardess, she was not
she
happy.
was really ticked now because she wanted her off the plane.
I was right.
and,
I get
and,
first class.
and she wanted to be right.
Oh, that
And now
definitely.
she's being put in first
First
class.
It was such a short flight, though. All I got was a nice seat and a glass of ice water. I mean, I can't win. I never get
She
to
gets
fly.
this wide seat so she can carry this bomb, whatever.
I never get to fly first class. I finally do. It's a 45-minute flight, and I get a glass of ice water.
Okay, now I got to talk to you about the pancreas. Why did you need a pancreas?
Oh, October 2010, the slow death that should have started years ago began. And the diabetes, as controlled as it was, my body said, with 34 pills a day, I take 34 pills a day.
Oh my goodness.
I have alarms to remember which times because they're timed. My body said, I've had it. Could no longer absorb any insulin. The only thing left was to put me in a hospital on an IV till I died. And they said, you'll have 3 to 6 months to live. I said, really? I went to Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis. They did the first pancreas transplant there. That pancreas transplant was the only thing that would save my life. And they all said no. Everybody I contacted in the country, I even talked to a Dr. Dufran in Brussels because they were willing to work with me, but I'd have to go live there. And it was at 2 in the morning, hello, this is Dr. Dufran. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But you know, everybody said no. The final answer came
Now,
from
do you have
Mayo
to wait
Clinic.
in line for a pancreas too, like a heart?
You do. So February of 2011, I didn't care. They said you're going to die in 3 to 6 months. I was sick and ill. I could barely get up every day. But I went on a little book tour down here in Florida, in Cape Coral, and the Fort Myers area. I just do all of this myself. It's just me, myself, and I. Somebody said, "Who's your agent?" Me. "Who's your publicist?" Myself. "Who's your manager?" I.
And John's your husband.
Poor man, keep him out of it. He doesn't want to be part of it.
Don't
But
mention his name.
yeah, and I was down there and I was speaking also for Donate Life Today, which I do often. I'm an advocate, and they had a big event. And I met a gal, Paige, and I'll be going to see her this week in Cape Coral. And she said, "Oh, there's these crazy European doctors in Chicago. They gave me a pancreas transplant. They'll give you one. They're crazy. A French guy, an Italian, and a Bulgarian. What a combo." So I tried calling them.
Well, whose pancreas is this? I mean, is it French or?
No, actually, it's Jocelyn Roberts. And I was just
Jocelyn?
Jocelyn Roberts. I received this pancreas a year ago on May 12, 2011, after living downtown Chicago, being chased by a homeless guy, being kicked out of a nursing home, and then some anonymous donor gave me a corporate apartment in the top of the presidential towers as long as I needed it.
Boy,
They
John
still don't.
takes care of you.
He does, and they still won't let me. He doesn't want to know who no thank yous, just for as long as you need it. And on May 12th, I received a pancreas transplant.
Where was it done?
Chicago. I am the first and only person in the world. I did research on every transplant center to have a heart, and 6 years later receive a pancreas. It's never been done.
So these crazy 3 doctors in
They're
Chicago,
crazy.
when you went up there to talk to them, they said they could do it.
They put me through another 4 or 5 days of testing. And the one French guy, oh, I hope he's watching. "Oh, you just don't understand why you're so fat," he said to me. "It's because you just don't know what you put in that mouth of yours." Oh, I mean, I was,
Yeah.
and I looked at him and I said, "Oh." So when he finally signed the approval papers, I said, "Are you done?" He says, "Yeah." And I said, "You're one little snot-nosed European, aren't you?" And the nurses told me he wanted to get me mad. He wanted to push my buttons and see if I was a fighter because it was very slim chance I was going to make
That's a
it.
great idea.
Yeah, he didn't think I'd make
Well,
it
you
through.
are a fighter.
Oh, and they said to me, "Young lady, you'll be in intensive care 14 days. Don't even mess with us. We already got your number." On the 5th morning, they had to let me go. I mean, this is one of the most painful surgeries ever. They have to reconstruct your whole intestinal area.
Yeah.
I prayed for the Lord 3 things. My donor would be a Christian again. I'd have no need for pain medicine, and I'd be joyful.
Has it happened?
Jocelyn is a Christian. I did Tylenol only. They sent in the psychiatrist because I refused payment. "This is the most painful surgery there is." You know what she said? 3 things. "Patient is happy to be off insulin. She's in a good mood. Still very hyper." I would think that would be good in ICU.
hyper?
The 5th morning they let me go. I was making people's beds. I walked the city of Chicago for a mile. It was amazing.
You know,
Oh, I mean,
You are amazing. I
I
will
don't have
say
to
that.
exaggerate.
Can somebody bring that lie detector in here?
Yeah.
I want to find
Go
out
for
if
it.
she really has had
Go for
a
it.
heart transplant, pancreas, and all this stuff. And you even have skin cancer.
Oh, all over the place, yeah. Well, from the meds. And I'm
You
just
thought they were going
developing.
to take your nose off at one time.
Oh, you know, it was so funny. I said, why can't I get it on my arm or my leg? It's always on my nose and my lips. But they did a good job, can't tell.
Oh, no,
They took a big chunk off my nose.
Because in the book, you were talking about that, and I was expecting, part of your nose
Well,
to
I
be
do
gone.
fill it in with a lot of putty.
Okay.
It's pretty good, though.
It looks great.
And you know, I arrived here in Florida on Sunday. Yesterday, Sunday night actually, my pancreas donor was finally, her dad was finally brave enough to call me, and I got to find out who she is. Wow. Jocelyn Roberts. She was killed by a drunk driver trying to save her 4-year-old cousin. They were in a crosswalk after the movies, going to go to McDonald's. A drunk driver barreled through the traffic that was stopped. You know how 4-year-olds run ahead? They're always faster than us. Cameron had run ahead. She saw that drunk driver coming. She would have been safe. And she ran to save her little cousin. And he hit both those children with her family watching.
Oh,
He hit them
dear.
so hard, his bumper came off and their bodies went flying. And he killed them both. And her
How old
dad,
was she?
13, the most beautiful 13-year-old, sang in the choir and a Christian. And her family is community family. They live outside Dallas, Texas, and in Denison, I believe. And how tragic. And I knew it was her. I just knew it was her, but I found out positively Sunday night and talked to her dad, Brian.
Wow.
And that man prayed for me.
Oh, my goodness.
They prayed for me on the phone so that all my new health problems wouldn't be overwhelming.
Would you pray for somebody? That's your camera right there.
Okay, yes, I will.
Right now.
I will. Anybody that's out there that needs a healing, whether it's emotional or spiritual, physical, financial, child that has gone astray, a marriage that is broken or breaking, or you've just gotten a diagnosis of lupus, or you've been diagnosed with a cancer that you're feeling hopeless, know that God is in control. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. Job 1:1 says, Job, an upright and perfect servant of the Lord. So he was allowed to suffer because God knew he was upright and perfect. You are chosen by God to be his child. Take his healing in the way he gives it to you.
1 minute, pray for me.
And Lord, I just pray now that all the people watching would trust you and just know that you love them.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
Isn't that wonderful?
Amen.
A miracle
Oh,
prayed for you. So
I
accept,
have to.
Isn't that wonderful? So accept your miracle.
I have to.
Jesus Christ. Isn't that wonderful just to say those words? Say it with me.
Jesus.
Jesus Christ is the answer to every need
He
you may
is.
have.
He is.
Isn't that wonderful?
He is. Lynn DeShazo, more precious than silver, ancient words, all those beautiful songs
Yeah.
we sang and
Yeah.
still sing. She endorsed my book, and I spoke with her, and she said, I don't know 10 people with even your issues.
Get your copy. Bye-bye.